Joining me now, Frank Figliuzzi, former FBI Assistant Director for Counterintelligence, now an MSNBC national security contributor. LaDoris Cordell is a retired California Superior Court judge. And former Illinois Congressman Joe Walsh is host of the White Flag with Joe Walsh podcast. He's a former Republican. Thank you all for joining me. Frank, let me start with you. You ran counterintelligence for the FBI. If Intel had come across your desk saying a former U.S. government employee had Iran battle plans and nuclear secrets stashed in their bathroom, how would you have reacted?
You know, this is a great question because we keep hearing the steady drumbeat of accusations that there's two standards of justice and that somehow Trump is being treated worse than anyone else. The reality, of course, is quite the opposite, Mehdi. It's the reality is that I would have ordered an immediate application for a search warrant, and there would have been a door-kicking situation to get all those documents back immediately. It wouldn't be pretty please. It wouldn't be a protracted negotiation over the course of 18 months or 2 years. It wouldn't have been a subpoena. It would have jumped immediately to a search warrant to stem the hemorrhage of severely damaging information to national security.
And Judge Cordell, let's talk about the actual trial. We're talking about, people keep talking, as Frank said, about two-tier systems, double standards. In fact, Trump is getting a fairly good deal here. He's going in front of a judge, Aileen Cannon, who he appointed, who's shown clear bias to him in the past. The New York Times reports this week that she's been on the bench since 2020 and has presided over only 4 criminal trials that have amounted to just 14 days of experience of actual trials. Given her failure to recuse herself so far in this case, what should we be on the lookout when we're evaluating this judge's performance and role and attitude?
This trial judge has the ability to determine the pace of this trial and also the direction of the trial. And it's done in 3 ways. One is scheduling. This judge has complete control over when motions will be set, when the trial date will be set, the date for discovery, the exchange of information. She can slow down this case dramatically if she so chooses, and nothing can stop her. She has a decision-making power over all evidentiary issues, and there are going to be 3 big ones. One is whether or not these classified documents, 31 of them, should be made available to the Trump team. And believe me, they're going to ask for them. And that's basically not going to happen. It shouldn't happen because of the protections that are there in the law for these documents. They can be redacted to some extent, but they're going to demand it to be open to them and perhaps to the jury. It's up to her. She will decide that. Yeah. She will also determine whether or not the attorney-client privilege continues. It was found to be an exception, the crime fraud exception, by a judge in the D.C. Circuit, but she's not bound by that. She could decide, no, there is still an attorney-client privilege, and those documents have to go. And of course, she has the power over juries, the composition of the jury selection, and she can decide whether or not, when a request is made to excuse a juror for cause, whether or not that should be granted. She can determine the composition of the jury.
So, Joe, we just heard Frank point out that Donald Trump got it easy when it comes to search warrants compared to other people. We just heard Judge Cordell point out that his judge is going to be very favorable to him, or, could be very favorable to him. And then you've got this whole idea that even if after all of that he gets prosecuted and sentenced and convicted, you've got a bunch of Republican candidates saying, well, we'll pardon him. You got Mike Pence saying this week he cannot defend what's alleged, and Nikki Haley getting more critical. At the same time, all of these candidates are being corralled by Vivek Ramaswamy, this fringe candidate, to put a pledge forward that we'll pardon Trump on our first day in office. So he's got a very good gig going on here. His own rivals won't turn on him. In fact, they're aiding and abetting him.
He's got a great gig going, Mehdi. Look, the nomination is his. This has always come down to Republican voters. Pence and Haley and Scott and DeSantis, all of them, they will follow Republican voters. Mehdi, that was a great open. And as I listened to you during that opening, the word that kept running through my head was traitor. Donald Trump is a traitor. I mean, what do you call someone who, like Donald Trump in the summer of 18 in Helsinki, stood in front of the world and embraced Putin and gave his middle finger to our men and women? Mehdi, what do you call someone who violently tried to overthrow an American election? That person's a traitor. And then here, Mehdi, I loved your focus on national security. Donald Trump purposely put our national security at risk. What do you call that person? I don't expect Joe Biden to say anything, but my greatest fear, Mehdi, is that, as you have said countless times, we normalize Donald Trump. My God, we can't call him what he is. He's a traitor.
Yes, strong language, Joe. I never expect anything less from you. You make a good case there. I'm always nervous about the traitor word because of the penalties that come with it in law. But I take your overall argument. He clearly has gone against the United States, both politically and now in terms of national security, Frank. Frank, you may know, and I think you and I must have talked about this in the past. I'm not someone who's supported FBI investigations of whistleblowers and people like Edward Snowden. But on this, I'm as hawkish as you can get. No matter how left you are, you can't defend leaving nuclear secrets in a bathroom. That's just ridiculous. Of course, there has to be a penalty for just taking documents to show off to your friends and refusing to return them. But I want to broaden the conversation, Frank, with you, just using your FBI background. We now have people not just defending Donald Trump, but basically inciting violence on his behalf. The reaction I mentioned from 3 Republicans there was to talk about violence, to talk about gun owners coming to defend him from the DOJ, military plans, bridges and nonsense, eye for an eye. Again, if you were back at the FBI now and stuff is coming across your desk saying very, very influential people are inciting violence, what do you do internally? What do you say to your colleagues? How worried are you?
So first, with regard to the valid national security concern, indeed, there's no way for Donald Trump to claim there was any ethical, journalistic enterprise going on here. And when you add the obstruction conduct to it, it doesn't compare. And look, I'll tell you something. The hair on the back of my neck stood up when I saw the listing of documents that are being used for prosecution purposes and the level at which they are classified: top secret, compartmented information, human source information, SIGINT, you name it, it's across the intelligence community. And the astounding thing is the IC, the intelligence community, has approved those in some way, shape, or form for prosecution. And remember, it's 31 documents out of 102 classified documents that were seized pursuant to the search warrant. So what is it that was so sensitive, even beyond what we're seeing, that couldn't be used for prosecution? Now let's talk about the threat of violence. It is ratcheting up. I think this is only the beginning of this ratcheting up, because we're going to see how strong the case is. We're likely to see indictments in Fulton County late summer, August. And then we're looking at the possibility of a January 6th federal charge coming out of Jack Smith as well. All this will mean we're going to see increased rhetoric that will incite violence. Good news, the 1,000 arrests so far for January 6th participants has had a chilling effect on organized violent groups. But I'm here to tell you what really concerns law enforcement is the lone offenders out there that they don't have an eyeball on.
And I should remind viewers that after the Mar-a-Lago search and Trump's rhetoric, a Trump supporter went and attacked the FBI field office in Cincinnati. We shouldn't forget that either. Judge Cordell, just to stick with the double standard theme that we've been talking about on the show so far, you have Trump and his allies saying two-tier justice system. And I wonder, Judge Cordell, how many people left your courtroom in a similar situation with no travel or financial restrictions, no mugshot, no perp walk? I mean, we hear about two-tier justice system. Okay, well, the tier is in favor of Donald Trump.
Absolutely. And any claim that he has about being treated differently is absurd. Sadly, we do have a legal system where there are individuals who don't have the resources that a Donald Trump has in order to deal with the criminal legal system. He has all the resources available to him, and it's just ridiculous if he's claiming that he's being treated differently. One of the claims that his team is already going to make, and that is prosecutorial misconduct, that he's being picked on for political purposes. And it'll be interesting to see what Judge Cannon does. But let me just add one thing. When we talk about the violence that is portends by the words of Donald Trump and his supporters, there is nothing to prohibit Judge Cannon from issuing a gag order if she is presented with, and I believe she could be presented with, evidence from the prosecution about Donald Trump stirring up people by attacking the prosecutors, attacking their families, and there are instances where people are now threatening harm and violence. And it would be wonderful if she were to do this. I doubt, given her past performance, that will happen, but it's certainly something that ought to happen here to tamp down this behavior. It's also tainting any unbiased and fair jury, if you're going to try to get one, with you when you have this man just absolutely encouraging violence.
And last question to you, Joe, a political question to you. We talk about the candidates, the GOP candidates already rallying around Trump, with the exception of Chris Christie. None of them are really using this indictment, this arraignment to go after Trump, which is bizarre. And then you have someone like Francis Suarez, the former mayor of Miami, joining the race this week. I think he's the 12th or 13th or whatever candidate in this race. I've lost count at this point. Your old party is intent on making the same mistake it made in 2016, where you throw numbers of people at Trump, and that just makes it easier for Trump to win.
And Mehdi, they're doing two things. Look, the truth is, the dirty little secret is, none of these challengers, DeSantis, Pence, all of them, none of them really believe they can beat Donald Trump. None of them actually are trying to beat Donald Trump. They're hoping, as I've said before, that the justice system or a heart attack takes him out. They're all waiting, Mehdi, for an unforeseen event. Because right now, Trump is going to be the nominee, and they all believe, Mehdi, as well, I think rightly, that Ron DeSantis is a very weak number 2. So they're all just waiting and hoping for something to happen to Trump.
Two quick things. Francis Suarez is the current mayor, not the former mayor of Miami. And you said heart attack, and I couldn't help but share this tidbit with our viewers that Donald Trump did go to a very popular Cuban-American cafe after the arraignment, but apparently he only ate McDonald's on the way home. Frank Figliuzzi, Judge LaDoris Cordell, and former Congressman Joe Walsh, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.